There is a major unspoken problem in the online space that is running rampant. And if you want to get good old Tiff over here on a tangent, this is it. Copying people's intellectual property, names of programs, content, even aesthetic and vibes of a brand. And I see where it can happen, right? People are desperate. They want to make money. They're trying all the things. Nothing is working. And there's a lot of people that look for shortcuts and then even feel entitled to do so because they're so desperate for something to work. It's just like people stealing because they're desperate in order to put clothes on their kids or in order to have a certain thing. That doesn't make it legal, okay? And I've had this happen to me numerous times. I've had people lift my entire sales page and then slap a different name on the top. We've had people copy my emails, even send them out to their own list days later. And then I get floods of emails from you guys saying, this doesn't, I saw this on this person's page. And by the way, it's happened to me a couple times with people who have bigger names in the space, which I find wild. And it's illegal. It's not acceptable. It's not okay. Now, what I'm not talking about here is when it's innocent. We consume so much content that you could be in the shower 5 days from now. Think of a great idea of a program, a service, a product of yours, but it's really been heavily influenced by something that you consumed on social media, but you think it's original and it's not. That's innocent, but you still need to do your due diligence and double check that's not where it's coming from. Okay. If you want to make sure you're in integrity and to make sure that you don't get sued. So I brought on and I sourced and sourced and sourced to make sure I found a great trademark and copyright and intellectual property lawyer to come on the show. We have Chandler J in the house, and she came by way of one of my clients who I truly feel is one of the best innovators in the esthetician and permanent jewelry space. She is an early adopter, a visionary. When you go and see her social medias, you'll go, okay, I see. Like it's really eye catching. I could see other people going, God, I wish I thought of that. And she went viral. And I've asked her permission to share this. She went viral because of how many people copied her. And then when she sent her lawyer after them, these people felt totally entitled to keep using her name and came for her, even though it's literally trademark. So this is the ST Betsy. And I always say, like, I always mess it up. It's like esthetician, Etsy Betsy. I always say it wrong. So I might say it wrong in the episode. And then I'll also make sure that we have it in the show notes if you want to go check her out. Athena Ravis, she also owns Flash and Fuse. And I found the attorney I have on the show today through her, and you're going to get the full lowdown. This is well over $10,000 of information that you'd have to pay a lot of money and a lot of time in order to get this kind of information from a lawyer in this space. So you want to listen up. You're going to want to share it with everyone that you know who has a business, because I know that you guys listening to me, you're like me and would be embarrassed and horrified if you took someone's name or you created something or you even thought it was totally unique to you and it wasn't. I know you'd be horrified, right? And you would also be very pissed someone taking your stuff, and maybe they already have. So I'm really excited for you to listen to this episode. None of the advice being shared is official legal advice, because obviously there are nuances in different states and different countries and different provinces. So I want you to take this in as legal information, and then we give you the next steps in order to apply this in your business. If you want to get people excited and eager to pay you and have those people find you versus wondering where they are and you feeling like you have to go chase them down somewhere. You want to be able to know how to handle things like when someone says, I can't afford it. And how can you handle it in a way that's not convincing or pushy or gross? I've got you, and it's free. My world famous 3 days to make bank online in your business is back. I only do this once a year and it gets full every single year. We have people from dozens and dozens of countries worldwide that take this. So you're going to want to even pause this episode, go to the link inside the description here on YouTube, or swipe up inside show notes and grab your spot. This is not just me saying it's going to fill up. It fills up every year, and then people get pissed when they can't get in here. This is it. This does not happen again until 2025. Go to projectmewithtifany.com/make bank. Plus, there's $15,000 of prizes. I am even giving a full ride and 2 half ride scholarships to my signature program, Selling with Soul, which is also only offered once a year. You do not want to miss this. There is a reason why thousands of people have shouted this out, have said this is actually the best live training they've ever done, even with the ones that they've paid for. And I'm doing it for free for you. So you want to get in here and get this. The other keynote that you want to hear is I am going to be ending my flash sale for my money course, Make More, Work Less. You want to transform your money story for good. You have got to shift these subconscious beliefs and these wounds that you have around money that you picked up from growing up, you picked up from society, you picked up from the school system, you picked up from toxic relationships. If you do not uproot those and release those, no matter what I teach you inside 3 days to make bank, you will be working against it and working so hard and trading so much time and energy in order to get the money. I know, because that used to be where I was at. And which is also why I created Project Me with Tiffany Carter, to teach you how to make more and work less. So you want to get in on this course, which has 3 modules, video trainings, a 70-page guided workbook that people are raving about. Go to projectmewithtifany.com/make more work less. I've also put that link in the show notes. The $200 off is automatically applied at checkout. You don't need a code. It's also here in the description on YouTube. So let's get it, because we've got to regroup and get that coin coming in for 2024. We've already lost a month of this year, and I refuse on my watch to let you lose any more time on my watch. What up, my people, my posse, my fellow crazies? It's your host, Tiffany Carter, and this is the show that is going to help you grow your business, your bank account, that big, beautiful brain of yours, your abundance, your relationships, and everything in between. It has been long overdue and also very requested that I have a lawyer on who actually understands all the ins and outs of the online space, content marketing, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't just have anyone on. I make sure someone is vetted and they're actually going to spill the tea for you. Otherwise, it's a waste of your time. Now, the stuff we're going to talk about, we're going to answer all of your burning questions, the ones especially where you're like, I kind of feel stupid that I don't know this. We're answering all of them, but it's not to be substituted for specific legal advice for your situation. It's meant to educate you. All right. And our guest today, Chandler J, if you're watching on YouTube, Project Me TV, you will see very quickly this is not your stereotypical lawyer. And it is an excellent example. And that you being you is what is going to attract ideal clients you actually want to work with. A lot of my people who have professional designations and are service based feel like I have to, wear a suit, or I have to come off in a certain way and use certain vernacular. And, I can't have red hair. Well, that's not true. I want you to actually be you, and then you attract more of you. And the main reason why I have this guest on, she's also vetted by one of my clients, the Etsy Betsy and Athena, and shout out. And she vouched for her, but I also studied your stuff and I was like, this is who I would hire. Mm-hmm. I would hire someone where I would actually want to go and get a coffee with you and ask you ridiculous questions, because I would feel like I'm not stupid. I feel like you would just shoot it straight. And I appreciate that. And I think that there's so much misinformation out there that we need to clear some stuff up. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Let's go into off the top because I was confused by this early on in business as
Mhm.
well. The difference between you guys see the symbol like TM, and then you see the symbol where there's an R with a circle around it. And then there's a copyright symbol, which the C with the circle around it most often. And it's like, you see this and it's like, well, what's the difference between all three? And like, do I need these? So let's first talk about what do each of those three things mean?
Great question. Okay, so first of all, the TM and the R symbol are going to be in regards to trademarks, and I'll touch on that in a second. The C is going to be in regards to a copyright. So copyright refers to content. A lot of people will say there are two forms of intellectual property. Trademarks and copyrights are both forms of IP. And a lot of people oftentimes get the two confused. What it means is the copyright is going to protect your content, and then the trademark is going to protect the brand. So the C symbol is going to refer to copyright matters. When you have a copyright, you automatically have a copyright in whatever it is you create. So the second your finger touches the keyboard, it snaps a photo, the second pen hits paper, whatever it is, you automatically have a copyright in whatever you create. It becomes more difficult to enforce that copyright if you don't have a federally registered copyright, meaning you haven't filed an application to take steps to own that copyright. But for all intents and purposes, anything you create is inherently your own, and you can use that C symbol, that copyright symbol, on whatever it is you create. You don't have to file anything to use that copyright symbol. When it comes to the TM symbol and the R symbol, both of those are going to refer to trademarks. However, the TM symbol is going to refer to trademarks that either haven't been filed, brands that haven't filed a trademark, or they have filed and the application is still pending. And that R symbol is going to be reserved for people who have a federally registered trademark. So you cannot use that R symbol until you have that official registration certificate. It's a violation of federal law to use that symbol if you don't have it. So you can use the TM symbol on anything. It's kind of similar to how people can use that C symbol, but it doesn't really have much weight or much bearing unless you actually have that application filed and pending. And then that R symbol is really what carries all the weight, because that's going to show that you have a federally registered copyright.
How do you know, as a small or smallish business owner, if it's really worth hiring a firm like yours, spending that money and time to have something as with an official registered trademark? Is it like only if you have a physical product, or is it worth it to protect like the actual name of your brand? Because obviously when people are starting or even in their first few years of business, they're really watching where they're putting their resources. And there's a lot of nice to haves with
Yep.
a lot of things in business. So, what would you say is a good differentiator between that? This is a nice to have, but here's why this is a must do.
Yep. So my answer is, of course, going to come off biased because this is what I do, right? But so I'll preface it by saying that. But trademarks are one of those things where they're proactive versus reactive. I'm not that attorney that you call when you're like, oh shit, I have a DUI, and you don't have an option but to hire someone so you stay out of jail. I'm the person who keeps you out of jail and prevents you from even getting in that situation. So the answer is twofold. Really, one, what is the point in creating and building a brand if you're not going to take steps to own it, right? Because it is something that you own. It's your intellectual property. If you're not owning it, then what do you really own? You don't have a brand. You can have a brand, but if you don't own it, you don't have a brand. You have a business that might make you money. However, that's when the second thing comes into play. If you start a business without there's the ownership side of it, of actually owning everything you're building and creating. But the other side of it is making sure that you're not infringing on someone else's brand. And that is such a big piece of it, because when you start a brand, a lot of people are like, you know what, I want to call, whatever I'm creating, I want to call course XYZ, I want to call this XYZ. And they just pump out a name. It turns out that name is already registered by someone else. Someone else already has a federally registered trademark for that name. And then this person is then infringing on the rights of the person who has a federally registered trademark. Well, it's not just, hey, slap on the wrist, don't use my name, you're infringing. What can happen, and what I've seen happen, this does happen, I've seen it happen, is that you can not only get in trouble for infringing on someone's brand, you can also be disengorged of all the profits you've made using the infringing term. So if you're starting a brand and you don't have ownership over it, and you don't know, maybe someone else does, again, what's the point? Because you could be building this and someone could come along and say, knock, 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 tap, tap, pay me everything.
And you're saying whether this is a physical product, like, my client Athena has like those cool, like chilling, like globes or whatever, right? Yeah. Like you're saying it's whether it's a physical product or a digital product.
Whether it is the overall name of your brand, whether it is a physical product, whether it is, because when you have a mark, when you have a brand name, when you have a trademark, you don't own it in connection with everything. You only own it in connection with how you use it. And there are categories. The USPTO has categories. There's 45 different categories, and you have to file it in connection with how you own it. So brand names that are the same can coexist as long as they are in separate enough categories.
Interrupting this incredible interview for a cash-making message. Are you fed up with pouring so much energy and time into your business only to get few or no clients? Well, brace yourselves for this total game changer. My world famous 3 days to make bank online in your business is back. This free live training will set you up to get cash flowing into your business. This event only happens once a year and always reaches full capacity. So run and secure your spot right now at projectmewithtiffany.com/make bank. The link is in the show notes when you swipe up, or in the description here on YouTube. Now, if you really want to double down on stacking the odds in your favor for making mad cash, you need to take advantage of my exclusive flash sale for my groundbreaking money course, Make More, Work Less. I'm showing it right here. This is the guided workbook that comes along with all the videos that everyone has been posting and talking about, showing it on YouTube. And this isn't for the faint-hearted. This is only for those truly hungry for success. You have to deeply want this for my money healing techniques to work. And the flash sale's ending soon. It's $200 off, and it's automatically applied at checkout. And those links are in the show notes and in the description as well. projectmewithtiffany.com/make more work less. Don't miss out on this. And remember, change begins with a choice, and it's time to recommit to yours. Now back to the interview.
Think of Dove soap versus Dove chocolate.
Ah, great example.
Well, no one's going to walk into the soap aisle and start eating it like it's candy. No one's going to go into the candy aisle and start rubbing it all over your body like it's soap.
I mean,
you never know. Maybe on a wild day, getting a little crazy, but there's really no likelihood of confusion there, right? The things are sold in different aisles of the store. Consumers are hopefully intelligent enough to know the difference between soap and candy. So that's where one of those situations, it would be okay. However, a lot of people, especially in the online space, let's be honest, people, I mean, we're not that creative. Like, people think like, oh my God, we're so creative. We're so this, we're so that. If you have a good idea, I love that. Someone else probably also has that really good idea. It's a good idea, right? And so if you want to own that, then you need to take steps to own it.
Now, I know some people who have been in the game for a while and have maybe courses, or they have a book, or they have a program, or a brand name, or a podcast. They're going, okay, I've not done this. I've not prioritized it. I know that there's a lot of people who might like feel embarrassed that they've not done it yet. And it is what it is, you guys. Like, we can't do all the things. Okay. It's okay. And they're going, holy crap. Like, I do so well with my program called like this. This is from my ass, which is not trademarked, but I should trademark my ass. So they're going like the confident chick or whatever. Let's say that's like the name of their program and they think that that's so creative and they're like, I've never, done anything to get this registered. And now they're afraid to work with someone like you because then you go look. And what if this name that they have really built a name around, it's infused in their brand? What if it is taken, but no one's like called them out on it yet, right? Because they're small business. It's not like they're Nike or something. So they've not been called out on it. And they're like, oh God, this is like such a big part of my brand. What do you tell them? They have to change the name? I'm guessing.
They do. So first of all, ignorance is not bliss. However, you don't know what you don't know. And when you're first starting a business, you're focused on making money. So I want to release the judgment that people kind of put on themselves when they're in that position, because a lot of times you genuinely don't know better. And when it comes to law, again, ignorance is not bliss, but there has to be room for the fact that people just simply don't know. No one's told you this. You haven't been educated on this fact, right? Now they are. So hopefully they take steps to, correct it. However, exactly that situation. You're avoiding talking to someone because you don't want the potential of perhaps bad news. And to be honest, it sucks. I hate when I have to call clients and give them bad news. It is not fun. It sucks. It does. And it's happened. It's happened before. And some people are more resistant to the change. Some people are more open to it. It kind of depends on a handful of factors. I think one of the worst situations is when you have a product-based business and you're told this, because it's not just like, hey, I need to change some online marketing material. It's like, hey, I need to change absolutely everything.
The box, the actual like stickers that go on it. I mean, everything.
Yeah, it's such a big and large undertaking. And I've personally gone through rebrands, not due to trademark issues, just because I've wanted to. And I know how much work goes into it. So I know it's a lot and it's a big undertaking. I don't want to, take away from that at all, because it is. I think the biggest thing is, just because you haven't gotten caught yet doesn't mean you're not going to get caught in the future. And do you want to continue to run that risk? Because it's one of those things where, again, you may be in business, you may have been in business for 3 years and no one's caught you yet. But say you get to year 7 and someone catches you, they don't come and they don't say, hey, you owe me everything you made from year 7. They say, hey, you owe me everything you've made for the past 7 years.
Dude, I didn't know this. I am shook, right?
Yes.
I am literally shook over this right now. Yes. I mean, the first solution I see is, let's just say that someone has a registered trademark around something you have out there. I would say, like, it's not like you have to do a full rebrand. You could simply add, right, like one more word.
Yep.
Like it's not like you have to change the whole thing. Right. You simply adding a word can be enough, as long as that version of it isn't also taken.
Right. As long as it's distinct enough. A lot of people will be like, well, I added the word instead of like corporate chick, right? They'll say, but I have the corporate chick. No, like that creates no distinction.
Okay. See, I thought, because, obviously I'm not a lawyer, although I should be one at this point.
Yep.
So you're saying adding like the in front of it, that's not enough. Okay. So this goes to, and you may or may not be familiar with this case study, but this goes to the Boss Babe brand. This is a brand that had the registered trademark, and they lost their registered trademark because Boss Babe, and obviously you can correct me if I'm wrong on the terminology, but Boss Babe became like a household slang term, like just a regular like word we use, and you can't trademark, I guess, a generic word, like a generic term. Yep. And so you can actually lose a registered trademark
if it becomes, for example, now again, that's a big case because that's not something that happens all the time, but I'll tell you common ones. Ibuprofen. Ibuprofen was a brand name. It's not, people don't say, hey, can you get me one of those pills that's going to make my headache go away? They don't say that. Or acetophenamine, or however you say the terminology of whatever the pill is called. People say, can you get me an ibuprofen? So it's become generic. Kleenex.
I was just going to say, is Kleenex a registered trademark, or did they lose it?
Generic. People don't say, hey, can you go get me a nose tissue? They say, hey, can you grab me a Kleenex?
Wow. Interesting. So you can lose it, even based on your own marketing success of
Yeah.
making that a household term, you can actually lose the trademark from it. Now, when you see, and I've been told this by other, lawyers that I've been interviewing for my own business,
Mm-hmm.
and I really feel, you guys, it's important to work with someone like Chandler, who's very familiar with the nuances of, the online space, like online coaching, online courses and programs and ebooks, because it is a different game, right? Just like when you pick a doctor and you want to like go to someone because you have a rash, it's better to go to a dermatologist than obviously a gynecologist, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I had to learn that because
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, I have lawyers. I'll just
Yeah.
go to my normal lawyer, my
Yeah.
catch-all lawyers. It's not that they're not good, but they don't fully understand the space. Law is so complex. How could you
Yeah.
possibly know all the things of
Yeah.
all the categories?
And niche, right? I think a lot of people are like, oh, you're a lawyer, you know everything. People will call me and be like, can you answer this? I'm like, it's a criminal law question. Yeah,
they're
you
like
would
behind
probably
bars and they're like, Chandler.
no idea. Do not call me. I have not a clue. Trademarks, I got you. But it's true when it comes to, I mean, even in the world of trademarks, it can be so niche because I've seen people come to me where they're like, hey, I hired a trademark attorney, or I hired an attorney forever ago. They registered a trademark for me, but XYZ is happening. And we'll be on a call and I'll look up their trademark and I'm like, this isn't really protecting you in all the different ways that you're using it. And a lot of times it's because traditional attorneys just don't have an understanding of the online space. I'll even go as far as to say the USPTO itself doesn't have an understanding of the online space. There's something called the ID manual, and it's used to help craft descriptions and stuff with the USPTO and like the way you file for trademarks. And the descriptions haven't even caught up yet. Like you can't search for gua sha, the facial tool, for example. They just haven't caught up to all the different products and all the different services and the online world of selling and the online world of business and coaching and courses and programs. Yeah, it's outdated.
So I've also been told, and I know other people have too, that just pairing some common words together does not mean that that is trademarkable.
Okay, I go back and forth on this because I understand why attorneys say this, but I also feel like it's inherently misleading because you can still trademark things. I will use myself for an example. I have a program called the Asset Protection Program. It's a program about, like the name would indicate, protecting your assets with trademarks. That would be there's some level of descriptiveness in the name of that title, right? In the program. Now, this is where people are caught in a rock and a hard place. When you're naming offers, you want people to have some type of indication of what it is so people know what they're buying, right? But on the other hand, according to the trademark world, the strongest type of mark would be something entirely made up. So, for example, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, right? It's just like a made up word.
Or like in pharma companies, I have a ton of pharma clients with my
Yes.
other business. And these are like, these drug names are made up by people like me. I mean,
Correct.
they are like from deep from people's asses.
Yes, that entirely made up, right? So there's the rock and the hard place. Now, a lot of times when it comes to a word like, for example, the asset protection program, you'll hear, oh, that's not trademarkable. Then why did I get a trademark? Like I have a
Because
registered
those are
trademark for that.
common words. What you just said to
Correct.
me, this isn't like some unique spelling of a word, or, like where a lot of people put like an X on the end of something to give it
Correct.
like a unique spelling that's not in a dictionary. These are straight up normal words paired together.
Correct. So what happens is there's two different types of registers. There's the principal register and then there's the supplemental register. Marks that aren't quote unquote as strong, right? A mark that's semi-descriptive is what's going to go on the supplemental register. So when people flat out say you can't register a trademark like that, that's inherently false because a lot of times in my case and in a lot of my clients' cases, yes, you can. You're on the supplemental register. The main difference is You still have a trademark. You still get to use the R symbol. People still can't infringe on your name. It's just if things were to go to court, you have to prove, hey, look, I do own this. See, here's my registration certificate. Here's proof that I started using it on XYZ date. Here's all the ways I've used it. And you have to show them that rather than it being presumed. So the statement that a lot, because I've heard that so much lately, that you simply can't own a name like that, in my opinion, is false because you can. It's just on the supplemental register.
Interesting. So when someone is looking at, if something is worth doing an official registered trademark, right? Because like that TM is like just showing intention. It actually doesn't protect you. The little C with the circle around it, that's copyright protection, right? Like, and you can use that without like filing something.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure. So when we're talking about like the actual official R with a circle, there are a lot of people especially in the coaching space, online education space, healers, where you could have 17 different courses and programs, and that can get incredibly costly to go and do registered trademarks for each one of those. So when someone is saying, listen, I have limited resources, I can't just sit here and like do all of them.
Right.
Do you have any guidance on what to prioritize?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, two things. One, I have a solution for that, but two, 100%. So brand name overall. I'm always going to say protect your brand name first. The overarching brand name, whatever that may be, because I can tell you what, it is a lot easier to change the name of a course. It is a lot easier to change the name of a mastermind or whatever it is than it is to change the overall name of your brand. And on that note, I'll also bring up, there's two different types of trademarks. There's word marks and there's design marks. So for example, the name of your brand versus the logo version, right?
And those are two separate. Just because
Correct.
someone has the name of their brand protected, that doesn't automatically mean your logo is protected and vice versa.
Correct. So when people are in between, I mean, because of course, if you have unlimited funds, and I always tell people, like, if you have fuck you money, then yeah, absolutely do both, right? But if you're in a place of, hey, I'm going to start with one or the other, as a general rule, unless there's some strategy reason to do the other, as a general rule, I'm always going to recommend starting with the word mark, because that's the overall name of your brand. You're less likely to change the overall name of your brand than you are your logo. And if you have to change your logo, that sucks, but at least you don't have to change the overall name of your brand. And the other thing is, if in the event you do trademark your logo and then you change it in the slightest bit, new trademark instantly. Think of Instagram, how it started as that Polaroid
The rainbow,
camera.
wasn't it like a rainbow Polaroid? Yeah.
It was like the Polaroid, and now it's this. Yeah. And they've had to file a new trademark every single time they've changed their logo. So I always recommend people starting with the name of their brand, the overall name of their brand, the word mark first. And then once they're like, okay, I have a solid logo and this is never changing, then move on to the logo version.
But that does not mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, just because let's say you have the logo trademarked and the wording, right? Like the actual words of your brand also as a registered trademark. That's not some blanket where all of your shit underneath your brand has some special protection. It does not. Is that correct?
Correct. Because then let's say you have your overall name of your brand and you have your logo, you've trademarked it. Well, you have a mastermind, you have 2 signature courses, and you have a podcast, right? Those are going to be 4 different trademarks.
I have a wild what if, but it happened to 2 of my clients.
Yep.
And I'm sure this is not going to be news to you. Those of us who are honest people, we don't always think about doing things that these other scammers do. Like my worst nightmare, I would be so embarrassed, let's say, to put out like a book or put out something, and this was someone else's, like even if it's like innocent, I would I would be embarrassed and I'd fix it immediately, right? But there's a lot of people who do this shit on purpose.
You know what I was just thinking about earlier today? So I was rewatching, I was scrolling on TikTok. Okay. I like to scroll on TikTok, a little bit of doom scroll here and there. And all these clips were coming up of Anna Delvey and the Inventing Anna series. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna refresh and watch that. So I've been watching that on Instagram. And I'm like thinking in my head, if she can scam this many people out of this much money in person, imagine what people can scam you out of online.
Fair point. So here's what happened, you guys. I'm giving you some tea. So my client, innocently, my client started and didn't, get her name and the name of her show and the name of things protected up front, because she was starting with like little funds. And then all of us tell ourselves this story like, it's just little old me. It's not like I'm J-Lo. Like,
Right.
like I'm not far enough along or making enough of money or have a big enough audience where it would warrant me getting trademarked. Like, who do I think I am? So that's what was playing in her head. Well, she popped off. Okay.
Love
like
it.
big time popped off, which is great news. And before she could hire someone like you, some motherfucker grabbed her name, both in logo and I believe you called it like the text portion of her brand name and her show name, and registered it and just squatted on it.
Wow.
So I don't know if you've ever heard of that happening. This happens in social media as well. Like someone becomes like well known or goes viral from a show or reality show, and people will do it with web domains, right? And they'll grab a domain and then you have to like buy it from them in order to get it. Okay. And then they buy up all the derivatives, and they do that with TikTok. They do it with YouTube. They do it with Instagram. And these big brands, by the way, that I consult for, they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars buying this stuff. So there's a business to it. What would you, is there any legal recourse, or are you just fucked and you have to cut a deal with these people? Like, what do they do? Release the trademark to you?
So it's kind of twofold, because I would argue that is unethical. And I would also make the argument that that walks the line of being illegal, because when you file trademarks, you are certifying by oath that you believe you have a right to use this mark, and you are the first person and you're the only person that has a right to use this mark in connection with these goods or services. There are checks and balances throughout the registration process, and that would be specifically during the period of opposition. So once your mark has been reviewed by the examining attorney, this is, you file the application, the examining attorney is going to review it in about 10 months, and then about 11 months, it'll get published in what's called the Trademark Official Gazette. During this 30-day period, anyone who believes they have a right to oppose your mark can. So say this, they filed for this mark, your client in that instance would have had the right to oppose the mark and say, hey, you don't have a right to this. But again, if you're not aware of the use, you're not aware of the trademark process, and you're not watching all the different ways that your mark is being used, or you're not investing in watch services, whatever it is, how are you going to know? You're not necessarily going to know. So that 30-day period passes, and you're kind of SOL.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So this, I mean, people can squat, and like I had to learn the hard way, which we won't get into. Okay. So this happens and someone does this, and just because, like you said, this is unethical and it could even be borderline illegal, just like some asshole not paying child support, that's not legal either. Correct. But you have to prosecute the person.
Correct.
Meaning you, the business owner, have to spend the money and the time and retain an attorney and go after them. It's not like you're calling the local police and they're getting arrested.
No, and at that point, I mean, even filing an opposition, it's going to be more expensive to do the opposition, because you're essentially starting a mini trial, in front of the trademark trial and appeal board. So it's like, it's more cost effective to just get a trademark up front again and be proactive about it, because it's just so much more expensive and there's so much BS to deal with down the road afterwards. But in that event, it's like, at that point, it sucks. But instead of even spending the money to do the opposition and to fight it and all this, it's probably more cost effective just to rebrand.
I had a guest on, Anthony D'Elia, which people loved this episode. You'll absolutely love it. A client of mine, mentor, marketing genius. He has his name, his actual name, Anthony D'Elia, trademarked, and each of his kids' names are trademarked. Mm-hmm. I didn't know you could actually trademark, like I could trademark Tiffany Carter. There's other Tiffany Carters in the world, though.
Yeah, but how many of them are using that name in connection with the goods or services that you offer?
Okay, I see what you're saying. So it doesn't mean like, hey, my name's Tiffany Carter, and you have an Instagram that's Tiffany Carter. So now you're infringing.
Right. They can still have the name. You can't prevent someone from having that, right? Like they were given a name, but you would be able to prevent them from, hey, you can't start a personal brand now doing the same stuff that I do. That's infringing.
Interesting. What about protecting your likeness, your persona? I've heard things about this, maybe because I'm in LA and there's a lot of like weird things that people protect. Yeah. Like, what's that all about?
That's going to be a lot more contract based, because when it comes to IP, you have your trademarks, your copyrights, and your patents. So you can copyright a photo of yourself, right? You can copyright videos of yourself. But in the sense of, it kind of depends under the lens of how we're talking about it. For example, if we're talking about a reality show, you are signing away all your rights to your name, image, and likeness, because they're going to chop that show up and use it however they see fit. They are also going to use those videos and those segments however they see fit, right? However, someone who is on the show with you wouldn't have the same right to go and do that like the show, like the producers are.
It's like when we see these ads, I'm using Dr. Oz as an example because I know it was a really big problem for him, where scammers would take the image, variety of pictures, right? He has a gazillion pictures on the interwebs. They'd take a picture of him, they'd take his name, and then they would like be selling some like, witch doctor supplement, making it look like, right, that he was endorsing it, which he was not. And that is using his likeness to sell something, right?
Correct. 100%. Yeah.
And as long as he has his name and would he have to have his likeness also protected?
It's difficult to protect likeness because how do you there's no tangible,
because it's not an asset.
Correct. There's no tangible.
It's more of his name and the photos because it's a copyright.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the T of the out of control bullshit that is going on in the online world, whether people have their own stores, their own products, whether they have courses, whatever it is. I am seeing so many of my clients, and it infuriates me. And I know Athena gave me permission to use her as an example. I mean, she just recently, and it really blew up online. It's the Etsy Betsy, if you really are into looking at the tea. And she's someone who like properly, trademark stuff. This is someone who's so multi-passionate. She has physical products, she has digital products, she has a store. I mean, this is such an incredible entrepreneur. And she has people constantly taking her name that is a registered trademark in the same industry. And then when you guys go after them to let them know, they feel entitled to it. Help me understand. This happens also to my friend and now client, Kara Alwell, the champagne diet. Right? Like there is a resort in Las Vegas who created like a champagne themed room, literally with a neon sign in her exact font, exact name. And they claimed ignorance, but they're heavily profiting off it. And she's had this brand for 15 years. She's developed it.
Wow.
And then the problem in that situation is how much money she'd have to spend going after a giant business doing it, and the stress, and they fucking know it. So that's one example, but it happening from like small business owner to small business owner. what do you suggest people do when someone is literally using your name, or they've copied, which has happened to me, where someone has used a different name and a different wrapping paper, but literally
Same.
copied my intellectual property of my methodologies that have made me a gazillion dollars and are really selling my course under a different name?
Right, right. So one, copyright your course content can be copyrighted. So I would say that. But number two, the thing is, when people have their intellectual property, they have a duty to enforce it. So all these there, I know you're talking about, there's this massive uproar online, right? But when it comes to people who hold IP, when you are the owner of IP, you have a duty to enforce it or else you can lose it. So hell yeah, of course people are going to enforce their IP. Think of it like this. IP, intellectual property, is the same as real estate, right? It's the same as real property. Just because it's intellectual, it's still property. You still own it. So if you own a home and you have all these people, one day you wake up and you walk outside and there's 5 people who pitched a tent on your land. What are you going to do? You're going to be like, who the hell are you and what are you doing here, and get off of my property, right? You, like, this isn't yours. You need to leave. You need to evacuate the premises stat, because if you don't, then they're squatters and they can just stay there. Like, if they're there for long enough, they can just
That's
stay there.
very true. Major problem with empty rentals.
Yeah.
And yes. Okay. I see what you're saying.
Just consenting to them staying there. Same thing applies when it comes to intellectual property. When people are infringing on your brand, you have a duty to say, get out of here, leave. You can't be here. I own this, not you. Go get your own stuff, not mine. Don't use mine. You have a duty to do that, or else you're essentially just consenting to their use and you can lose your rights. And they can say, oh, well, okay, you've let them use this mark for however long and haven't done anything about it. So therefore, yeah, it sounds like they can keep using it.
What if, in using this example with my client Athena, there's a lot of people doing it? She could spend a fortune, and not to mention, right, the energy and the time, constantly going after these people. So how do you determine, who to really go after?
Number one, it's going to come down to who is using it in the exact ways that you have it, that you own it, right? Because again, people can use certain terms that are the same, but they can't use it in the way in connection with how you own it. So narrow it down to that. Who is using it in the way that you are using it? Number one, that's going to be the biggest thing. And then number two, it's who is also copying kind of like the essence of your brand as a whole, in basically kind of what you were saying about your course. They're copying the essence, like, oh, they changed a few things, but it's the entire essence of the brand, right? Who is taking the essence of the brand to where there is a legit likelihood of confusion? Because not only are we concerned about, like, hey, stop using my name, but it's also, you want to protect the consumers, because trademarks also protect your consumers. They protect your clients. They say, hey, if I'm thinking that I'm investing in your course, but someone else is, because I trust you, we've built this relationship, I've seen what you're doing, and been doing for years, and I'm ready to pull the plug, but someone else is selling it, but they're making it sound like it's coming from you. And then I buy it and then I realize this isn't yours at all. I'd be so mad that I spent that money. So it's there to also protect the consumers. But when it comes to the levels of enforcement and kind of who to go after first, it's going to come down to, again, who is using it in the exact ways that you're using it, who is also taking the essence of your brand, where is there most likely to be that likelihood of confusion, and where is it impacting your consumers the most? And then it kind of trickles down from there.
When it's copyright, where I have a lot of clients who complain about this, it happens to me often. Yep. Where my graphics, my quotes, even my captions, which is right, these are copyright protected, but they get copied And, some even big influencers have been called out on this. At what point, do you send like a DM to someone and say, hey, respectfully remove that? Like, at what point is it worth and important to say you are infringing upon my copyright?
Yeah. So I say when it's making you money, that's going to be the biggest one, right? If it's making you money, big time, that's when you need to say something. Something I see often is TikTok, right? Like TikTok, people will copy someone word for word. They'll recreate the video, but they'll copy. Have you not seen a lot of that? I've seen so much
No.
of that. Oh, people will copy, and it happens whether it's a joke or whether it's this or whether it's that, but people will
Oh,
watch
I
the
know what you're
video.
talking about. It's like even like the point of view ones.
Yes.
And they see it's gone viral. And instead
Mhm.
of what I do is, oh, I get the gist of it. I'm going to reword it and make it make sense for my particular industry and get inspired from it. They literally copy the tech
Word for word.
word for word on there. And that can't be kosher, is it?
Correct. No, it's not. It's still a violation of copyright. However, if it's not making you money, now this is different when it comes to people who are content creators for a living, and that's how they're making money, right? I saw someone the other day, she was a social media manager. She made a video about how someone was copying her content word for word. And she said, here's my video, here's this girl's video. And she put like the clips side by side and kept playing. And I was like, oh my God, it is exactly word for word. Like, I think this other girl had to legit write down a script of everything this person said. It was copying to that extent. And I think that's where it can be really dangerous. I think the level of what to do about it is, I think number one, it's going to depend on your brand, because I think brands who want to keep things a little bit on the nicer side, then you probably send a DM. Someone like me, like my type of brand, I'm a little more bold with it. I would probably just publicly call it out, because that's also an effective way. That also, what that also does is lets your consumers know and your clients know, hey, this person is literally copying me. If you need help with this, come straight to the source. I have you covered, but this person's just taking everything that I'm doing. They don't necessarily know what they're talking about. So be careful.
Let's talk about AI.
Yep.
Here's what concerns me about AI. I understand it's not going anywhere. Robots are going to take over the world. As a content creator myself and someone who I pride myself in creating, original stuff. I love when people share my stuff,
Yeah.
where I'm being tagged. Like
Tagged.
I
Exactly.
do it so you guys can do that, right?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. What scares me about AI is I see a lot of people, because it feels like the easy way out, where it's like, write me, 10 Instagram post captions as a permanent makeup artist who focuses on microblading, da 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 da. And then the thing generates it in like seconds, which is weird, but it does. How do you know that that's not being pulled from someone else's stuff?
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay,
100%.
so you don't like
It's
this idea
problematic.
either.
No, it's problematic. You know what's funny is, I mean, I think we're gonna have to learn to leverage AI. It's just the way the world is going, right? Um, However, I saw something. It was actually a lawyer post this the other day, and I've done the same thing, like generate some I never like the captions they generate, so you always
Right.
have to
Exactly.
tweak them. But like, give me some ideas, because sometimes I just feel brain dead. Anyways, so I asked for it to generate me some trademark captions once, and it went on and on about how trademarks are the tapestry to your brand and highlight the intricacies of it. I just, the weirdest, not in my brand voice, like it was so off and it sounded dumb, to be honest. I'm just like, what is this saying? This sounds silly. Well, I saw this lawyer the other day who used it, and I was like, it generated the same shit for both of us. Literally, she used it on like, oh, it sounds weird. Like, I feel like we can tell now when things are generated by AI, number one, but also number two, there's the complications of where is it pulling from? Because it's pulling from all these sources, but again, number one, we don't know that all these sources, and they could also be copyrighted by other people. And on top of that, anything generated by AI, you cannot own. It cannot be copyrighted because it is not your idea. It's not your original creative authorship. So people that are creating all these programs and courses and
oh yeah, like full like books and stuff.
Yes, full
so
things.
Technically you cannot copyright it because that did not originate from your brain. Correct. Or someone that you've hired, like a ghostwriter's brain.
Correct.
I do not, I think that's another shooketh moment here. I do not think a lot of people know that.
It's not an original work of authorship.
I want to make sure I ask this question. So I have, you may or may not know this, like a pretty well-known money course that comes with a workbook, right? So it's a printable workbook. And there's a lot of concerns that my clients have. And, I've thought about it too, where what is stopping someone, let's say, from buying Make More, Work Less? And don't do this just because I'm putting this out there, people. Okay. I'm giving you $200 off right now. So just take it. And they buy that. What is stopping them? Now they have it, right? They've given me the money. I've given them the digital product. Someone could go pass it out, not charge for it, but could go, hey, all my entrepreneur friends, I'll just pay. I'll pay for Tiffany's course, or I'll pay for her program, or we can all chip in. One of us will buy it. And now all of us will get it. Of course, I have all the copyright language, right? Just like someone owing child support doesn't mean they're going to pay, right? Me putting a copyright or you putting a copyright doesn't mean someone's going to adhere to it. Is there anything else that we can do to make it even a little more like scary for people, that they know you mean business around it without kind of being a total dick?
Well, this is twofold because I have a story incorporated in this. I would say number one, it depending on your terms of purchase. So whenever someone's making that purchase, inside of your terms of purchase, you want to include, a discussion about your intellectual property and that you retain all rights and ownership, and that this purchase grants them a single user license to use this product. Non-exclusive single user license does not grant them a right to pass it out. If it is shared with anybody, then you will be charged for however many people it is shared with. If it is distributed in an unauthorized way, you'll be charged for those, whoever else it lands in the hands of, and also the right of recourse to sue or to take it as far as you want to take it, if you want to take it to court. And the thing is, what I'll also say is, if it can happen to me, it can happen to you, because it quite literally did happen to me.
No, it did not. Someone actually did this to a copyright lawyer.
Listen, this is how bananas. No, like, you are going to be distraught, because I tell you, my jaw was on the floor. So first of all, let me follow this up with, this was my client, so they know better. Number two, it was also someone who has been in my world for a long time. Like, they know me. And if you've followed me or my brand, or you have a sense of who I am in the slightest, I will out the shit out of you instantly. Like, I am not the one to play with. I am very vocal. And so anyways, I had just invested in her program. So I was like, I haven't trusted anybody. And this is the thing, I've been scorned in the online space a lot. And so I'm like, I have not trusted anybody, and I've not invested in anyone since this either. But I was like, we've kind of been orbiting in each other's worlds for so long now. We've built that trust. I think I'm ready. So I invested in her program, which was not cheap by any means. And she was my client, right? She's my client. I'm in her program, bada bing, bada boom. It's about, I think, week 2 or week 3 in this group program. The other thing that absolutely killed me is I don't put my name on a lot of people. I'm very similar to you. Like, many times and regretted it. And I had gone on my stories and I was talking about how I was so excited to be in her group program and like this and that, yada, yada, yada. And it's about week 3. And she had purchased all of so I have my firm and then I also sell digital resources like contract templates, courses.
Like kind of done for you templates kind of thing?
Yes. Okay. Yep. So DIY resources are obviously already put together so you can implement easily. So she had purchased.
We'll put that in the show notes, you guys. Okay, go ahead.
So she had purchased a handful over the years and then she kept going on and buying them. And I said, girl, let me just upgrade you to the bundle because we have a bundle called the Design For You bundle that includes every contract template I've ever made ever. And you get lifetime access to every template plus everything added in the future. So it's pretty much like one-time payment. You get access to every contract template you could ever dream of. So it's like, let me upgrade you to this because you keep buying like these templates, you've already spent enough. You'll just get inside this. So I put her inside of it. She had access to everything. And then I'm in a group program and about week 3 comes along and we get an email that says, hey guys, like inside of your portal, you'll find this week's all about boundaries or whatever. There's a video and it's like extra bonuses. There's a video about boundaries. Here's this contract template and here's this contract. And she was giving out my contract templates.
Wow.
And I was like, there's no way. Because one thing about this, she's smart. Like she's not, and she knows. I'm like,
I wonder what she was thinking. Like, I'm giving them for free, so it's okay.
So then this is the other thing about me. I don't care what you do as long as you're honest about it. You could be screwing me over. But if you look me in the eyes and say, you're right, I was doing you wrong, I will say, you know what? I don't appreciate it, but I respect you for being honest with me. That is my biggest thing above all else is honesty. And so I instantly replied to the email and said, this needs to be taken down. And I sent her a voice note and I said, what the hell? Like this needs to be taken down. And she responds, she's like, oh my goodness, so sorry. My VA was supposed to link to the affiliate link to your templates and not the templates itself. And I said, that's a lie because this says bonus material. You're not going to say bonus material and then have people pay for the bonus material. And then also in the video, about boundaries, it talks about how people get access to these contract templates. So I'm like, you can't like lie your way out of this one. And I'm just not dumb. Like you stop essentially. I don't like when people lie to me. So that's when I'm like, okay, well then I guess we're doing this. If you want to lie to me, then you'll reap the consequences of that. So I hired my own lawyer because I don't like handling my own legal stuff. And there's back and forth. There's still back and forth. And it's been going on forever. But I'm like, you sit here and take my stuff. Like, I'm not going to do anything about it. Number one. Number two, it's one of those people who is like, I make $1 million a month. And I do this. If you make $1 million a month, then why aren't you settling this case?
Right. Exactly. And if you're making that much money, like, let's say I was like, God, this would be such a great resource. I would ask you, hey, do you want to do a collab? And I will make it like an add-on bonus where I'm not taking any money from it. It's an add-on bonus where they can buy your legal pack. If you want to give them like a special Project Me discount code, that's cool. If you don't want to. And then they can buy it and you're making the money off of your shit.
Correct.
I shouldn't be blown away, but like, I mean, why would you fuck with a lawyer? This is not a good plan.
It was astounding to me, especially because the premise of the program was all about kind of like branding and about like content marketing and stuff like that. And she's been well acquainted with my brand from the very beginning. So she knows I'm a very vocal person. So I was just like, what are you doing? And why?
I think psychologically, and I'm not excusing it, what happens with people, and one of my longtime mentors always said this to me, right? Like desperate people do desperate things. Mm-hmm. And I think some people who have narcissistic personalities as well, or tendencies, can go, oh, they won't be mad. They'll just be happy to be like affiliated with my brand. You know, like they think they can get away with stuff, like they're above the law.
Yes.
Wow. Yes. I mean, this discussion is so helpful and you're so generous with explaining this to everyone and time. And so basically there's 2 levels you can go with this, right? They can buy templates and things
Yep.
from you and do like a self-paced
Yep.
version, right? Like a
Mhm.
DIY version, which obviously is a lower cost. But if you want customized stuff,
Mhm.
an
Mhm.
actual like you to go and you and your team to go and actually register trademarks and things like that, that's a separate situation. And obviously
Correct.
it's going to cost more money.
Right, 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 right. Absolutely. Yep. So we do done for you services for clients. And then we also have a resource shop, which really was created because we want to meet people where they're at. I understand that price can be, can prohibit people. And when you're first starting out, you may not have the funds to invest in things, but that's why I created the Lethal Legal Resource Shop, because things still need to be accessible. You still deserve and need contracts that are actually going to work and protect you. And then we have our signature trademark course, which is, honestly, I will say, it is the thing I'm most proud of creating ever in my life, because it really is that good. And I'm a very humble person, so I don't brag on myself a lot, but APP really is that good. I still get messages about it. And when I launched the evergreen version of it a few years ago, and it was so transformational. So I'm really excited to host
I
a
have
live
no
version.
doubt it's good. I mean, look what you guys just got for free. And I know
Yeah.
she just gave us, I would say a solid, like at minimum, $5,500 of lawyer time and credible legal information,
Yeah.
not
It's nice.
counsel, but right information. And so I can only imagine, right, someone
Good.
paying you for it, the stuff's going to be legit. So this will all be in the show notes. It's also over on her link in bio
Yep.
on Instagram and TikTok, which is lawyer Chandler J. And I will also have that in the show notes. You guys take a screenshot of this episode, whether you're watching it on Project Me TV on YouTube, take a picture of it, or you're just walking, listening, whatever you're doing, and share it on your socials. Share it with fellow entrepreneurs, small business owners, fellow practitioners, healers, doctors, realtors, network marketers, affiliate marketers. I mean, anyone who has a business or is, selling anything online, because just from listening to this episode, they're going to have it served straight and be able to make an educated decision of, oh, I need to at the very least, invest in getting like the templates.
Yeah. 100%.
Last question for you. In the medical world, which
Yep.
I'm very involved with, for example, like a doctor who is licensed in the state of California, but isn't licensed, let's say, in the state of New York, they can't treat patients in New York because they're not licensed there. So when it comes to your area of law, do you have to like pass the bar in each of these states that you help people in?
It's all federal. That's why I chose this area of law, because
I mean, I
yep.
figured, right? I was
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
curious how you can do that and not have to have like bars in multiple
Correct.
states, which would be terrible, like a lot of work.
Sorry, it cut out for a second.
Yeah, it's okay.
But yeah, no, absolutely. So all trademarks, all federal. So it's amazing. You get to work with people from all over. It's a beautiful practice area.
I love it. Well, again, I really appreciate you taking the time to explain these things, and I can tell how much you care. You
Yeah.
would rather have people at least have some protection when they're starting, when their budget isn't that high, than them basically risking it and with no insurance policy. Like this is an insurance policy and you can get away with it. Like you don't have any health insurance, you can get away with it until your ass, breaks an ankle. And now you've got, a $27,000 medical bill,
I
you
tell you
know.
what, I ended up in the ER. I ended up in the ER because this is a couple years ago, but I walked in, I was in urgent care all week because my finger was so swollen. It was
How
the weirdest
random.
thing. It was so weird. It was my ring finger on my right hand side, and it was so painful. I was highly medicated. I'll just say I was highly medicated to try and sleep through the pain. And
Wow.
nothing was working. And so I walked into urgent care for about the fourth time. And they're like, if it's not better within 24 hours, you need to go to urgent care. I was in urgent care. The emergency room. I walked into the emergency room at 10 a.m. and I was in emergency surgery by 2 to,
What?
to
What'd you
save
have,
my
like
finger.
MRSA?
I have no idea. It was the weirdest thing, but I saved my finger, and I tell you what, those medical bills are real expensive.
What the hell did you have? Was it some kind of a weird infection?
Yeah, I still don't have an answer on what exactly it was.
But you could have lost your finger.
Yes. Yes. I have the scars still. I had to stay the night and everything. I mean, like hospital food, the works.
Yeah. And with no insurance.
Yeah.
So your own ass didn't take your own advice on the health side. Well, that sounds about right. We all do that, right? Like
exactly.
I mean, you're not hiring her for, for health insurance advice. Correct. Just like I always tell you guys, do not hire me as a relationship coach. Okay. Correct. That is not my field of expertise.
And I was like in between insurances too. So it's not like I'm just like, no, I was, right in the window. Such bad timing.
But still have your finger. So
I still have my finger.
There you go.
It was worth it. I needed my finger. So
well, thanks for coming on, babe. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.